Hi there, I'm speaker Anthony Rendon. As you know, I've been doing art talks over the past couple of years, and today I'm proud to interview somebody who I'm a big fan of, become a really big fan of in more recent years. Rónán Ó Snodaigh is someone whose music I started listening to rather recently. I'm a big fan of Late Date on RTE, which is a program that in Ireland plays early in the morning. Here in California, it's on in the middle of the afternoon, so we got to kind of pretend that it's late at night when we're listening to it. But Rónán's music is incredible. I've become kind of obsessed in the past couple of months with some of his tunes, and I wanted to talk to him today and make sure that folks got to meet him. So thanks, Rónán. Appreciate you being here.
Hi, Anthony. I'm delighted to be here.
Thanks.
Ask away. You might know more about my music than I
do. I hope so. Like I said, I've become a really big fan.
Nice.
I think what strikes me about your music, and especially my interest in it, and I keep every time I hear a new one of your songs, I send either the YouTube link or the song to about 30 of my friends, and they fall in love with it too.
Well, that's good to hear.
None of them understand Irish, but we're all kind of drawn to your music. I find that interesting. Is that something that you find with other folks throughout the world as well?
For me, it's kind of necessary, isn't it? I mean, I'm fairly, if it was just depending on everyone understanding what I say, I'd only have 38 fans. You know, like even in Ireland, it's not as widespread Irish speaking, you know, and even within Irish speaking, they're not all gonna want to listen to me either, you know. So I suppose what I'm left, and it's great to hear that other people are picking it up. I suppose I'm left with the music, and then the decision of how fast or what swing is put into it, but also the intention is the main carriage, really, you know, because if people don't understand the language, then you kind of have to put it in with intention. And it seems to be that people can pick up, it's like an extra sense. People are really musically intelligent. They can hear an intention a mile away, you know. So,
right, yeah, that makes sense. It makes me think of the Icelandic band Sigur that I'm a big fan of as well. I again, to use your vocabulary, I might not understand their lyrics, but I think I understand their intention on their songs, and I feel that way about you too. What do you think is the current status of the Irish language in Ireland today, and why do you sing in Irish?
Well, I got brought up speaking Irish. Like, Irish is my first language. I kind of like it. Like that's you know, I haven't had a chance to question that. You know, that's just how I got brought up.
Right.
So I suppose it's the first language I'd go to for certain things. You know. The current status, it's not in the unhealthiest shape, or you'd think it would be, but it's not as widespread, or maybe it doesn't get as much support from the governments. You know, I think there's been a resistance in the government to encourage it. They just kind of put up with it. It's a funny relationship, you know. So that's what I see, but yeah, it is fairly active, and there's different pockets. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to witness. As a kid, when I grew up, I felt kind of a bit isolated by that. You know, I was really aware that there was nobody around us except for the families that were in Dublin that spoke Irish, even spoke it or even liked it, you know. So that was a bit weird to grow up with, but how would I put it? I suppose the country isn't as anti-Irish as it was when I was a kid, you know. So I that's very encouraging, you know.
Right. Do you think that that sort of, I heard an artist say once, behind every great artist is an unhappy childhood. Do you think that sense of isolation of speaking Irish, did that cause you to maybe become more insular? And does that manifest itself in your art at all?
It's bound to. Maybe that's why I shouted so loud, or put my shoulders back and maybe open my shirt a bit, to kind of show some fearlessness, to to stand up on the wall and dare people to whatever. But yeah, it definitely has an effect. Some people, and maybe as a kid, I saw people maybe quieten their voices or shy back a bit, and I thought, all right, well, somebody's got to do the opposite here. Somebody's got to really front it up with some a display of courage, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So yeah. So some of that's on purpose from when I was growing up. Yeah.
Interesting. I asked you about the status of the Irish language. I just saw the concert maybe 2-3 weeks ago. You did with Glenn Hansard at the NCH, and it was an amazing show. It reminded me of like the Rolling Thunder Review. I don't know if you've ever seen that, or reminded me of like aspects of Dadaism where there were just all these people kind of coming on stage. And what's the status of Irish music today? From what I hear and what I saw that night, it certainly looks perhaps a heck of a lot more vibrant than things are in the US, but I wanted to get your take.
Yeah, vibrant is a great way of putting it. Irish music is just vibrant by nature. It really is a thing, and in a way, it hasn't been the monetary aspect of the music that's kept me going. It's a lot to do with how good and how vibrant the musicians and the audience in Ireland are. It's a very musical place, and it's an interesting thing. Each time things influence each other. Like if someone's standard goes up, everyone's standard goes up. Do you see? So right. And there's a lot of even just Irish music. There's a lot of different layers to music, different musics, but even within Irish music, some of the best musicians are teachers, or lorry drivers, or farmers, but right. they dedicate a lot of their time to music.
Right. Yeah. You can definitely see that as you go throughout the country. I'm trying to promote arts in my part of Los Angeles County, and my part of Los Angeles County is very distinct from other parts. Do you find as you travel throughout the country that there are different sort of pockets where music is different than in other places, where different things are emphasized?
Yeah. So even within the Irish tradition, everything, if you microscope it, you'll see patterns and different things emerge, like even within Irish music. Like I could give you a simple example of, let's just say the dancing tradition music. So in Kerry, they dance polkas. That's really a thing. Mm-hmm. In County Clare, no one dances to polkas. They dance jigs, and they play jigs in Clare. In Donegal, they dance to reels, and they play reels. And they're completely different time signatures, all right. Three of them. That's just up the coast, So yes, is the answer to that. It's quite diverse. I think I'm not afraid of traditions coming or going. I think people revert to what they like doing, and that is what a tradition comes out of. I think it's got something to do with the landscape as well, you see. So right. I think people in a place will act as people in that place did. They'll find similar things, there was something else in your question. About community arts. You were saying in your area, and you tried to promote it. I've noticed. I've seen a few things happen in different areas, and they've really stayed with me. I remember there's an area in Dublin called Ballymun. That's a tough place, It'd be like, I think they're called projects in America.
Right.
you know. But I did a gig out there maybe 5 years ago, and I met a fella off the side, and it has a theatre. You know, they put a lot of work into making it not a project, you know.
Right.
But this local volunteer, and he had some workshop and a lot of wood. I think he was a carpenter, and he made 100 fiddles with kids. So 100 violins that they handmade, because he couldn't get money from the council. So he just did it. And I thought, oh, you mean I thought, oh, so there's 100 houses in this community that have fiddles now that are handmade.
Right.
Like, that's even if you just do the small percentages, it's inevitable that Ballymun will have a fiddle style in 10, 15 years, all of its own.
Right.
Because of the way that every standard improves everyone else's standard. There'll be fiddle teachers. There'll be, it just, so sometimes in a community, you do it, but I think it's like gardening. You do it and you wait for 20 years. I heard another thing, or I noticed, a lot of traditional music came out of Manchester in England in the last 30 years. And I was always curious. I was very excited, thinking music coming over from England that's like our music, but you could hear the difference, high quality. And I was thinking, how is it such high quality? How come? Like, quality nearly only comes from that competitiveness. And then I saw a program on the telly, and there was some guy getting a kind of acknowledgement or an achievement award or something. His name was Dermot. I can't remember his full name, but he moved over there 50 years ago, and he's a concertina player, but he's not brilliant or anything. He just needed an excuse from his normal life to keep doing the music. So he started classes in Manchester, and then 20 years later, it can't all be down to him, but you see what I'm getting at.
Right.
If you do something, I think the act of doing it, like making 100 fiddles or teaching a music class, it inevitably causes a ripple, and then when it's met with something else, it creates a bigger, and then it happens. I think that's the best way, because I thought a bit about that, and I think that's the best way. Sometimes people think money is a way of benefiting arts. Money is such a suspicious kind of an eel. It doesn't always mean what it's meant to mean. It's such it's just an interesting thing. Like, you get money and you think of all the things you could do with it, but you mightn't get to the thing it was meant for, because there's all these other things on the way. But when you just do something, like you teach, and you go, so I've been trying to do the same trick, you see, because those things, that means a lot to me. So I've been doing bodhran lessons without looking for huge results, but I'm curious to see in 10, 15 years time, will whatever I've started cause or connect with another ripple and have a bigger effect. So anyway, that's how I think is the way to go about that.
Who do you give the lessons to?
It's open, and I suppose it's become a thing because there was a lot of demand. So I started 7 years ago, just doing it locally. And then people talk to each other, I suppose. And then there was a demand. So then people asked me to go to schools to do with kids and stuff. So I do a class, like from 5 to 8 on Wednesdays, or that's what I was doing. And then I started another class in the city. So I do it with all sorts. Really, I'm open. I'm still learning. Like, I really haven't got any pretensions of being super teacher. I'm still trying to learn what's the best way of teaching something, trying to inspire, I suppose.
Right. Well, speaking of the bodhran, I think what's interesting about your music, is the way you play a lot of different percussion instruments, I've noticed. And you play some sort of more traditional instruments, but then in your most recent music, you sort of combine it with a synthesizer, and the sort of ambient music. Is there something about Irish music, something about your music that sort of lends itself to combining? I think, the most obvious example is like the Pogues, for example, who combined punk with traditional Irish music. Do you think there's something about your music or Irish music in general that allows it to sort of, there's this seamlessness in the way it seems to combine the two?
It's interesting. It's a really interesting question, and I'd hesitate to say that absolutely yes. It's unique than anyone else's music.
Mm-hmm.
Of course it is, and so is anyone else's. But maybe there's a few things like maybe positioning is one. Like, we're an island, so everything that comes here has to come from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting thing to think about. I'm not sure, and maybe that creates an openness, because I think music can blend regardless of instruments, you see.
Mm-hmm.
Music's really interesting. It's not what we all think it is. Sometimes I suppose music and the gel that creates a combined music with people comes from, it's like music is something you do with friends. That's right. When it happens, because you're hiding. It's like an escapism. You're hiding from your parents or your teachers, or you think you're getting away with something, and you're playing music. It's like it's really interesting. Like, it's such a delicate balance, because on the one hand, it becomes a public thing or a cultural thing, and you have to represent your people or your place, and you become a representative. But when you're making music as a kid, it's you notice it's like playing football, something you do with friends.
Right.
You hang out with your mates and you play music, and that's where it's really juicy. When you're playing music with strangers, you're exploring or you're listening much in a different way than with friends. It just rolls. So when you're with friends, it doesn't really matter what instrument. You won't go louder than your friend because you want to hear your friend as well. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, you'll be playing on behalf of your friends.
Right.
So in a way, whatever instrument you're playing, So yeah, it's a curious question. And on purpose, I like to mix the modern and the old. I like that. I don't, like when we drive a car, we've got the windscreen and we've got the rear view mirrors. Do you know?
Right.
If you have either one of them gone, it's just a bit trickier,
So does it feel different playing with a couple of friends than it does playing on stage?
Yes. So what happens again when you're on stage, which is interesting, it's a triangulation. And maybe that's why audiences can feel, well, that's what they're meant to feel. I think when you're on stage, you're meant to do something so that your audience will completely forget about everything. It's like some form of hypnosis or something. It's not really, but, show's on. You want them to forget about everything and to feel like they're in the music you're creating.
Right.
And so you create, it's like a triangulation. So let's say I'm playing with my friend, let's say I'm playing with Miles on the most recent album. When we're on stage, we're playing with me, Miles, and you. You're in the conversation too.
Right.
So if you stop paying attention, our music will shrink a little. If you started looking at your phone or something, we'd shrink a little. But if you were looking at us and involved and even smiling or going along with the bits, then it becomes your part of generating the. It's interesting, but that's what happens, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you use the word, I think you use the word hypnotic right now. And it's an interesting word because I think what I find so interesting about your music and what I find so cool about you, I've watched a lot of your live performances on YouTube, for example. You sort of allow yourself to get lost. There's and I think that's contagious. I think there's I've developed sort of an obsessiveness, obsession with your music, and I'm just sort of constantly, I'll put your songs on repeat and listen to them over and over and again. And I think that feeds off of what I perceive as kind of a hypnotic sense or an obsession that you seem to have. I think today in a lot of popular music, it seems like there's a lot of folks who don't allow themselves to get lost. There's almost a sort of self-consciousness or self-awareness that prohibits them from losing themselves in the music. Maybe they're concerned with looking cool or whatever, but you really do seem to lose yourself. And that, for me, that's contagious, and it translates.
Oh, thank God. So I'm delighted to hear you say that, or even to be speaking to you, Anthony. You've listened and received me very well, because you're right. And another interesting thing about it is it kind of comes from the same source of what was the word you said? Inhibition or lack of confidence or something, that I have the same or had the same. I suppose my way of, I've had a few tricks that I've come up with over the years to, to contain myself if I'm in front of an audience, or to be able to be in front of an audience. And losing myself is, I insist on it. I insist on it. I won't have it any other way, because I get so uncomfortable if my mind activates. Because I can be really hard on myself, I can notice that I'm wearing stupid clothes or I haven't done something right, and the embodiment of that when you're trying to do something, it's terrible. But so, and I'm delighted it's contagious, because I suppose what I try and do is I figure out, sometimes I take ages before I'll sing a song. I'll just play for sometimes 5-minute intros or something, because I need to know that I have it right. If I have it right, I've worked so long on this little turn of phrase. Do you know what I mean? I've looked after how to play it, and how to play it in a way that will give, it's nearly like a neural pathways thing. If you get it right, it cuts across your neural pathway somehow and stops something coming in and gives you, maybe they're the wrong words, but it gives you room. You definitely start walking and you go, oh yeah, if that cycle just keeps repeating, I can just go somewhere else. And so, that is the idea, for sure.
You talked about your collaboration with Miles, and your most recent album. The video that everyone I know is obsessed with is Our Son. Incredible song, incredible video. Tell me about the house. Tell me about the Muhammad Ali quote at the end: "Me, we, or we, me." All that is in you.
So there's a few things there. The house, that's a rare gift, isn't it? What a beautiful place.
Beautiful.
So that was built in 1849. On the grounds of a place called Carton House. It's in Leinster. It's outside of Dublin. It's in Kildare. A very special place. I think it was built for the Queen of England at the time, and later on it was occupied by one of our great patriots, the Edward Fitzgerald. So at first, when I knew the Queen of England was involved, I was afraid. I thought I mightn't sleep. I might need to burn some sage and sit up by a fire with a knife, kill some ghosts, I know, but you know what I mean? I was nervous. I was thinking, God, I'm doing 2 weeks in here. I'm a sensitive fella. I don't want any of that carry on going on at night. And I didn't feel anything bad about the place. And but so I suppose there's been a lot of big stars staying there. I can't remember them all now, but the owner told us that it was a hideaway for a lot of big stars, you know. The song is something I was spending ages on. Let me see if I can tell you about the song. So Irish is my first language, right? And then English. I've a bit of French and stuff. I could have gone deeper into the song. And in a way, I wanted to just do it right. I thought, if I do this right, the concept I don't own at all. You know, I'm always trying to find a concept that can resonate everywhere. That's like a human, a person. This is a person's experience, you know, because we're a spirit in a body on a timer. This is life. You know what I mean? And then after that, you know, so I was thinking, well, everyone can only experience, like, you have a nose, so you have smell. You've got eyes, you've got an ear, and you have a mouth. So we've got the same stuff. And then in a language, there's a thing called prepositional pronouns. So I looked it up because I was spending so long on this thing. I tried to write, and I imagined in a circle, or if you're in a dome, that there's the language you're in will give you so many windows to explain, or just between your experience and you, just to do with you, just your own self, what you have, or what's below you, what's above you, what goes through you, what comes off you, what, you know, what comes out of you. So there's only, I suppose what intrigued me was that there's only a set amount of these in each language. And there's a few different ones in different languages, which is intriguing, you know. So I just wanted to work on the ones in Irish. I wrote the other ones out, you know. And there's a few new ones as well. There's one I liked, was On Account of You. I love that. That makes you responsible when you think about on account of me. So that song, Our Son, is, so the exploration is all of that, right? Just a me, all the different me's, the possibilities of me or of you. But then at the end of it, it has to be for something, you see? Our life, to have a life and a nose and an eyes and an ears and a mouth, and you know what I mean? To have all of this, to suss it out is one thing, but you have to give it to something. Yeah, there's no point, because you can't make your life a waste. You know what I mean? Like, right. So, and that's for everybody. You know, everybody has to find something to give and to receive from or to. You know, whatever it is, it has to be. So that's why. So the song is two bits. One is all the different experiences, and then for me, it's for you, for her, for him, for us, for them, and for yous, kind of thing, you know? Yeah. But I hope to hear other versions of it in other songs and stuff, you know? And then I suppose it's gas talking about this, because I do it all up here. You know, I walk around my garden and I walk through town, it'd be headphones on, I work it all out. But then I was working with Miles, and Miles doesn't speak much Irish. And he makes videos, which you notice, he makes incredible videos. But I asked him if we made a video for the song, could I put subtitles at the bottom? And he just said it wouldn't look good. So I thought, I'm going to have to do something like I did as a kid. I'm going to have to be brave and embody this thing that I'm trying to say. So I worked out a dance, and that's what you see in the video. You know.
Then the dance is magical. The dance is magical. To listen to the song is beautiful to listen to. When you watch the video, it's obviously the house is beautiful, but the dance is so it's so expressive, and I think it complements the song so well. You know, personally, I first heard the song for the first time late in the summer, this past summer, and I sent it to a bunch of people. One person I didn't send it to was my mom. She died on September 2nd, about 2.5 months ago. And I never sent it to her. And now I hear that song, and it still feels like I regret not sending it to her, but there's still a connection between when I hear that song. As recently as yesterday, I was on an airplane listening to it, and there's that connection, and particularly in the video when you say me, we, or we, me, all that is in me for you, really resonates with me. And
I'm delighted to hear that.
Yeah,
because the other thing is, that's what's been done for us. Do you know what I mean? That's how come we're here, because somebody did that life switch and gave us life. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Thanks for that. I know your brother's a politician. I'm a politician. Is there anything you want to say to politicians, or anything you want them to pay attention to that they don't?
There's one thing I noticed. It's an intro. What I do is I notice little things. If something catches my attention, I kind of microscope it and make it bigger and spend ages on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, most things I just generally accept. You know, but I remember there was this fella called Vincent Brown in Ireland. He was doing programs for politicians. You know, interviewing them. He was harassing them and agitating. It was a great entertainment for everyone, and I'd say for the politicians too, because he had a great mind. But I remember he said once at the end at one of the programs, he stopped now, but he said about Leo Varadkar. He was our Taoiseach for a bit. He said, an intriguing politician. He said, he's the only one I've had on my program for over 30 years to ever admit that he might have got something wrong. And I remember I just sat up in the sofa and I went, that's interesting. And then he said, yeah, because I corrected him on something once. And he went, is that right? And I said, yes, it is. And I said the facts. And then he said, I might have to amend my view. So I always look out for Leo Varadkar. I can't say I agree with him on everything, but I think it's such a huge human quality that it immediately has me. If someone's willing to admit to a fellow human being that they might have to amend their point of view, I think that really warms me to him. So sometimes I think politicians are under attack so much. I think people expect too much from politicians. They expect them to not be people. I don't envy you or my brother that job. I really don't. I wouldn't last any time. I'd use bad language. I'd say the wrong thing to say. I'd never last. I like the informal maybe too much.
Yeah.
I suppose that's why I play music, because in that world I can deal with some big things, but I can deal in the informal world.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that'd be the only thing I'd say to politicians. I'd say that about Leo Varadkar, because I think everyone would want the courage or even the reassurance to be able to say, I mightn't have all of this right yet. Do you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good quality for any person, but particularly politicians. You're right. I agree. I could talk to you all day, and this conversation means a lot to me, but I got time for one more question. I think it's a short one. When are you coming to California?
Oh, as soon as you organize it, maybe.
I'll do that.
I suppose. Yeah. Well, if you're sending out my music to people, I kind of like music it's just resonance. So then it'll resonate. And then surely, like I was saying about the ripples, they kind of look for each other, don't they?
Right.
So yeah, if it starts resonating over in California, then surely I'll be resonating over this side of the pond, and you know, you'll never know. Like that's kind of how things work, you know.
Right. Good.
Well, in music, anyway.
We'll find some kids in California for you to give bodhran lessons to.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate your time, Rónán. Again, a big fan, and the conversation has been very meaningful to me personally, and I really appreciate everything you do. Appreciate your gifts and appreciate your time.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Pleasure.